Hello, Bayou Coast Kayak Fishing Club, and welcome to Off the Water. I'm your host, Darth Yacker. Tonight we have special guest Tyler Caldwell, Clayton Shilling, and Aaron LaRose. We'd like to thank you for joining our very first episode of Off the Water. This will be a live broadcast appearing every Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. Central on Facebook Live. It will also be available later on YouTube as well as podcast. So this is a show that's going to be talking all about kayak fishing, focused primarily in Louisiana, but also we will be covering topics all over the Gulf South and at times maybe all over the United States. We hope to educate everyone on kayak fishing, safety, rigging, areas, locations, and to also promote our sport and specifically our Bayou Coast Kayak Fishing Club. It's a great club. It's been around for a long time. And on another episode, we will talk a little bit more in detail about it. Tonight, though, we're going to cover a couple of different topics. We are going to be covering our recent tournament, Minimalist Challenge, which just took place this past Saturday in Leeville, Louisiana. And we have our winner, Clayton Shilling, on to discuss his strategy and how he managed to come out on top of 135 anglers. We also have Aaron LaRose on. Aaron is the club's sponsor coordinator. He's going to be talking about the baits that were used, our sponsors, and just the event format in general. Future topics will also include our different tournaments. We'll talk about various fishing locations all over the state and rigging kayaks, comparison of kayaks. We'll have a lot of our sponsors on. We hope to do some live shows. We hope to have some of the people on from the Backpacker, Back and Paddle, Massey's, all of these great vendors all over the state who supply kayaks to our members and who can kind of help us fill us in on the different kayaks out there that will fit your need depending on the type of fishing you want to do and whether it's saltwater, freshwater, offshore, etc. So at this time, before we get going, I'd like to thank our sponsors, including the Backpacker, Hobie, Kayaks, Cabela's, Bass Pro Shops, Berkeley, Pin Rods and Reels, Abu Garcia, Johnson, Yak Gear, and Railblazer. We have a host of other sponsors that we will be talking about during our next few episodes. And certainly we're going to bring them to your attention and talk to them in more detail. So at this time, we're going to go to Aaron LaRose, and we're going to talk a little bit about our recent tournament, Minimalist Challenge. Now, this is one of our more popular tournaments. It takes place every year in Leeville, Louisiana. This year, due to the demand we had, we actually increased the number of anglers to 135. This is the only tournament in which we limit the number of anglers due to the format of the tournament. And the particular format includes a shotgun with all 135 anglers. And each angler is given a bag of baits that they are not aware of to the morning of the tournament. And they are limited to using just those baits in that tournament. This year, the goal of each angler was to catch your limit of, not your limit, but it was limited to 3 redfish, 15 speckled trout, and 10 flounder if you could manage to catch one. So we had a very good turnout. We actually sold out this tournament twice. Due to some weather issues. We had sold out the tournament initially. The weather forecasted was pretty bad with projected winds of 30 to 40 knots, heavy rain. And I think for only the second time in Bayou Coast history, the officers made the decision to move the tournament back 2 weeks. Ultimately, that was, in my opinion, I think most of the other officers' opinions, a great decision as we had fairly decent weather, no rain, fairly light winds. And especially in Leeville, with the way the tides and everything run, it was definitely a safety concern. And I think the tournament overall turned out well. Although it was pushed back to February, we did have a number of anglers coming in with some fairly large redfish. We had, to my surprise, a number of speckled trout caught. No flounder that I can recall. But overall, everyone got in safely. I think everyone enjoyed the tournament. And had a good time. And obviously our goal at the end of every tournament is for every angler to get in safely, which we accomplished. And then secondly, everyone to have a good time, which I know speaking to a lot of our participants, the ones that fished the tournament, even if they didn't catch anything, all had a fairly good time. So we were glad to do that. We'd also like to thank one of our sponsors at the tournament, Leeville Restaurant, who catered the affair. We had some chicken Alfredo. I think we had some shrimp pasta as well, and some bread. They also supplied us some free gift cards that we gave away as a raffle at that tournament. And a shout out to Leeville for being such a great sponsor. If you haven't been there and you're in the Leeville area, you're looking for a good place to eat, it really is a very good restaurant. A lot of different options on the menu, soft shell crab, fried shrimp, etc. So at this time, I'd like to bring in Bayou Coast sponsor coordinator, Aaron LaRose. Aaron LaRose is a past winner of Minimalist Challenge a few years back. He is also a past president of Bayou Coast, I think, for 2 years. And having had some issues come up in his life, a new baby, as I understand it.
Issues?
Yeah. So new babies can take up a lot of time. So Aaron stepped down from his duties as president, but as a true member, he wanted to stay involved in the club and agreed to stay on as sponsor coordinator. And we really appreciate his 2 years as president and appreciate his ongoing role as sponsor coordinator and helping us out. Thank you, Aaron, for your continued support of the club. Tell us a little bit about the logistics in getting 135 baits for this tournament. It's not just one bait, 135. You're doing multiple baits for 135 anglers.
Yeah, first off, there was a bit of arm twisting there to continue to work for the club. But no, just kidding. No, it's been fun. It still is. It's a great organization, and I've been honored to work with some of these guys for as long as I have. And this club is what it is because of the people that have come forward. So so Minimalist is, like you said, one of our more popular ones. A lot of it has to do with it being the beginning of the year, but also the uniqueness about it. And you're right. So getting that many baits, first and foremost, could not be done without some of our great sponsors that we have. Specifically, for the last few years, or a couple of years actually, Mr. Gerald Gaspard with Pure Fishing, getting baits from Berkeley. And then this year, one of our new and up-and-coming sponsors, not new and up-and-coming in the fishing world, because been hearing a lot of good reports from his year there. But Captain Lane Zimmer with Death Grip Jig Heads, both of them came through tremendously in getting us these baits. The big thing I always like to tell people, and what we're very privileged for, is that all of these baits were donated. This was 100% donation of lures and jig heads. No money out of the pot from Bayou Coast to provide these baits for the anglers, even with going up in the numbers. So big thanks to those guys and those sponsors, because it really helps. We get to do some great things and some unique tournaments, and those guys really come forward and help us out for that. This year, we had the privilege of kind of getting off on a quick foot, or getting off on getting these very quickly throughout the year. I believe Tyler Caldwell and Tyler Drew earlier this year got with Gerald, and even I think went to I don't know if it was a trade show or a particular warehouse or something, to actually look at what they wanted to have for this year. So these lures were thought about and picked very early on. Many of these weren't even, or maybe even still aren't even really out to the general public. I think they are by now, but at the time they were so new, they weren't available to the public. They were not prototypes, but they were like the next lures coming out for 2019. And we were very fortunate enough to get to select some of those and use those, the first of the year. Some of the baits, just to quickly go through the baits, we always, in years past, we always like to have one top water to give you that top water option in the morning. This year's top water was a Berkeley J Walker 100. I'll defer to Clayton and Sean and Tyler later to get a report on how many people caught. I know the water temps were a little colder, and sometimes that's not great for top water, but I think I did hear reports that there were a good many people that did catch something, whether it was big bull reds or maybe a trout or whatever on top water. So that was good. We had the Berkeley Power Bait Power Swimmer, which was like a ribbed swimming shad. That was also paired with another swimming shad called the Power Bait Hollow Belly. And then the popular, which I thought would be the most popular bait, because we've been asked to get one of these or something like this years past, the Power Bait Rattle Shrimp in the coastal candy color. That shrimp made headlines at least 2 or 3 years ago as being, one of the top shrimp lures in the Leeville, Grand Isle area for catching trout. So we're excited to get one of those for everybody. And then capped it all off with a unique bait for this year, the Jester. The Jester looks like a cross between a beetle and a bunny, which nice creature bait. Which I believe I think I saw some people posting videos catching bull reds on that or catching reds on that. Definitely a bait I would not be surprised would be great in the spring and summer, but was surprised to see. I think people really gravitated towards that one this weekend as well for the reds and the ponds. So that was our lineup. They were paired with Death Grip Jig Heads, which at the time I was excited. I'm always excited about getting a new sponsor for the club. I think it shows that we're always working to get our name out there and get our sponsors' names out there to our members and our anglers. And this is a name that has been told to me for a while now. And contacted Captain Lane, and immediately he was gung ho. He was like, "Yeah, I want to be the jig head sponsor for this tournament, and I want to do even more for the rest of the year." So we're looking forward to a good year of stuff with him. But then later, I was almost hesitant. I was like, "Whoa, I just got a sponsor who's notorious for his jig heads holding on to baits so well that you try to pull them off and they're shredded. They hold that well." And I can speak personally to tell you, don't want to mess up or lose your baits in this tournament, because once you lose them, they are gone. And so I almost had a freak moment of, I hope nobody gets overly frustrated because they put the lure on one jig head and now they can't take it off. And if they do, it's going to be just destroyed. But maybe that added to the challenge, and I'll close with that. We, in the years past, the feedback about the lures we get has been kind of up and down. A lot of people are like, "Oh, these are really great." Some people are like, "Oh, these are horrible." And I think it's all about the angler and what they're comfortable with or what they have confidence in. But in the end, I like to remind people, this is named Minimalist Challenge. The weather is enough of a challenge. We can't do anything about that. But I think another unique piece of this tournament is the fact that we're not giving you always the bait you're going to use in the marsh. We're kind of tweaking it. We're kind of changing it up. It's a little different. And I think that really adds a cool twist to this tournament and makes it, what it is. So.
All right, tell us a little bit. If I know the entry fee just to get into the tournament was $30, and with that, everybody was provided their 4 baits, plus the top water, plus the 3 jig heads.
Correct.
If you had to value what those baits would cost if you were just buying them separately, what do you think that would run individually? Now, I know you don't buy some of these baits individually, obviously, but if you would put a dollar figure between the top water, the jig heads, and the baits, what do you think that would estimate at?
It's about a $15, little pack of baits there. You got, especially, the jig. Well, let me back up. It might be almost close to 20. Your top water's pretty much $5 right there. Mm-hmm. Give or take, a dime or so. You've got 3 plastic, which in a pack of 5 would be, so they're about $1 a piece. So that's another 3 right there. Your jig heads are another 3 or 4 or 5. So, you're looking between, I'd say around $15, maybe more. But great quality of bait too. That top water, I've got, we used to get some other top waters as well in years past, and I still use some. Like they're, we've created prize packs and gotten a prize pack or something like that for a post, contest or giving away at Paddlepalooza and Fall and Tide. And it's funny, I'll go through and be like, oh yeah, that bait was Minimalist Challenge 3 years ago. I didn't have confidence in it then, but I'm going to throw it now, and I can get a fish. But yeah, I think regardless though of the value of what you're getting in the baits, I think this year we set a record for first place.
Absolutely, prize. I think first place payout was $1,000.
I remember winning 4 years ago and getting like $600 something or something like that, and to see that first place was $1,000, it's like, oh, we've gone above and beyond here.
Yeah, absolutely. That comes back to the generosity of our sponsors when you think of supplying these 4 different baits plus a top water plus jig heads. You're looking at over a couple $1,000s of tackle there. I know in the past when we've gotten even a discount on the top waters, we've spent $5 a person on a top water getting a discount. I think this year we were able to add over $650, as I recall, to the prize pot because of the sponsors actually donating the top water, and I'm sure Clayton really appreciates that as he took home a nice purse to that. And I'll tell you one thing about those Death Grip jig heads. I was introduced to those probably about 6 months ago at Puglia as one of the club sponsors, and someone had recommended them to me there, and I've used them to fish gulp products, especially. They really hold on to the gulp baits, and these hooks at this year's tournament were sharp. And when I say sharp, I literally had plenty of holes in my fingers before even leaving the launch, just rigging everything because they kept catching my fingers. They were very, very sharp. They held onto the baits, I thought, extremely well. I had at least one redfish, my first red, swallowed the bait, tore it up really well, trying to remove the hook. It was lodged way down his throat. I had to use a long pair of pliers. I was concerned because it was going to be my favorite bait, the one I used most of the day. Fortunately, I was able to put a couple of dabs of super glue on it. Between that and the Death Grip jig head, I was able to continue using it the rest of the day. So I think we have, Tyler, do we have some pictures of the baits that we used?
Yeah, actually, I put them up when Aaron was talking about them earlier, but I'll stick them up one more time.
Okay, great. So those were some pictures that we had. I'm sure people will be going out and purchasing those baits. I know I am in the process of switching over all my my jig heads to basically Death Grip jig heads. I enjoy using them. They hold onto the baits. They're sharp. It's a local company, and we always try to support our sponsors the best way we can. I do it by purchasing their products. In 99% of the time, our sponsors are providing us with some real quality products. So we've also got a recap here from Clayton Shilling, who was able to take home first place this year. Clayton is a longtime member of Bayou Coast. I don't know, Clayton, were you around when the club began back in the early days?
I mean, I think I came along about a year after they kind of formed it. I know when I joined, I mean, there was maybe like 25 or 30 active guys. So yeah, I mean, fairly, it was in the beginning for sure. Yeah.
Now, your first Minimalist Challenge experience, how long ago was that?
I think we were fishing out of Bassons, sulfur mine and stuff, and we had some terrible tournaments over there where hardly any fish were caught, but then we had some good ones, So, but it just water can get really low over there. But I really like Launch Leeville, and that's a great spot for this. So, but yeah, I've been doing it a long time, and I like Launch Leeville though.
Now the tournament has grown quite a bit since you first started fishing. Is that correct?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm not really sure, exactly how many we used to get, but I know that now. I mean, it's selling out quick, so you kind of got to jump on it. Once it's posted.
So the tournament now, it used to be when it first started, it was just open to anyone who wanted to get in, and now because of the popularity of the tournament, it's open limited to just Bayou Coast paid members for I think the first couple of weeks, and then essentially open to the general public. I think at last count we had over 500 and something paid members pay an annual membership of $25, and it enables you to participate in first come first serve basis on tournaments like this, as well as participate in the championship series and the Angler of the Year series. It's definitely worth the $25. That money goes a long ways to providing food for the club at certain events. Also, we purchased 2 new trailers this year, and that's a whole other episode we can talk about and the benefits of membership. It's certainly worth it. Now, have you ever won Minimalist Challenge before?
I don't believe. I think I came in second one year to Aaron.
That was I think it was 4 years ago.
Yeah, that was a couple of years ago. I mean, last year I didn't place. I placed like 20 something. But I mean, I've had some fourth place, third place, that kind of thing. But I think this is the first actual win.
So you actually picked a good year to win it, with it being the highest payout ever.
If you're going to win it, you might as well do it on the year that the payout is the highest. So.
Absolutely. Now, I understand that you actually couldn't fish the tournament the first scheduled date. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. So I had a conflict when it originally came out, and I was bummed out. And then I saw the cancel tournament, actually from a friend of mine, Derek, who fishes a lot of our club tournaments, and he could not fish this one, so he kind of it was a roller coaster for us, and he went down and I went up, so it worked out. Yeah.
Now, did you agree to split your winnings with him?
I did not. We didn't work that out. Yeah, had he had said something, I probably would have done that. But
yeah, absolutely. Did you get to actually do any pre-fishing before the tournament?
No. So no pre-fishing. I mean, life is busy, and I mean, I really didn't have any real good intel. Last year, I fished the same spot that I fished this year, and fished the previous 4 or 5 years, however long we've been doing it in Leeville. And so I just kind of look back through some of my history of tournament, and the fish have cooperated 4 out of the 5 years that I've fished that area. Last year, it was just kind of a very unique weather situation. And this year, it's been a pretty mild winter. We're having these little warm trends that come through and kind of warm things up. So the fish, I think, will respond a little differently than just, a lot of cold, obviously. So, but no pre-fishing. I just kind of went off the history of the tournaments that I've had in the past. And those fish are generally somewhere in that area, and they were definitely in a different spot than they normally are. But, luckily I was able to find them.
So you fish out of a native, a Jackson, what type of kayak?
So I'm in the Hobie, the Hobie Outback. Got the new 2019 model. Great, fishing platform. I typically like to run right off the bat, at least 3 to 4 miles to kind of get away and get away from the fishing pressure of where guys, are thinking that they may be spending the day who have been pre-fishing, and get to some virgin water that hasn't been beat up, and hopefully that produces some higher quality redfish. I couldn't do that without the Hobie. Obviously, it allows some range and gives me the ability to get out there. So I definitely use that to its full extent.
Now, I think I saw some pictures online, or maybe some comments on Facebook. Who got you into kayak fishing?
Mr. Brendan Bayard. We used to be neighbors.
Last year's winner, as I recall, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, we wanted to get him one tonight, but unfortunately it wasn't available. So.
Oh yeah, last year's winner, and also he did it with his son in the boat, I believe. So that's quite an accomplishment.
An up and coming.
Graves. Oh yeah.
I think Graves outfished me
another
last
5 years. We're all going to be in trouble. So.
Yeah, as I do recall, I think Tyler, you're right. I think Graves did outfish a number of anglers because he actually caught a fish last year. It was as I recall, Tyler.
Hey, if I could ride in the back of Brennan's boat, though, that'd be different. So.
That's true, but he knows where Brennan's going. So.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, Brendan got me into the sport. In fact, we went to it was Hopedale Lagoon, and we launched at 3 a.m. It was pitch black, and we paddle out and fish in this little bank. And I've only ever been saltwater charter trips, and he's gave me this top water that was black with a chartreuse head on it, and I'm throwing it in the dark, and I hooked up on a redfish. It was a 23-inch redfish. And from that point I was hooked. And so I bought a tarpon 140 and then saw the advantage of the hands-free fishing and moved on. So
let me ask you this, because I've got my own story on that. How long after you bought the tarpon before you bought the Hobie?
Well, actually, from the tarpon, I went to the native for about a year and then got in the Hobie. So, but I had the tarpon maybe 2.5 years,
Okay. Did the Hobie even have the Mirage drive out yet at that point, or no?
Yeah, it had a Mirage drive. I mean, it was still the
sit-in kayak
type seat, and in fact, that boat's still hitting the water. I mean, I sold it to a guy that I know, and that boat's still out there performing with the original Mirage drive.
Wow.
Same fins, everything. So. Yeah.
I actually used one of those not too long ago when I was fishing with Brendan. I was having issues with my drive, and he brought in an extra. Those things are almost indestructible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Slow, but almost indestructible.
Yeah.
So, in your Bayou Coast career, you won Minimalist this year. Have you ever won Paddlepalooza or Fallen Tide?
No, I've had many 4th and 5th place finishes, but no, I have not. That's something I'm striving to do. Just haven't been able to put together for for the 2 big ones.
So does Brendan ever take you out during those tournaments? I know you were a neighbor, a close friend of his. He got you into the sport. He's won a couple. I know Fallen Tides, maybe even some Paddlepaloozas. Has he ever shown you the way?
All right, so I think the first time I placed higher in the tournament than he did, that's when we stopped fishing together. so I mean, no, Brendan's a great friend of mine, and but I mean, he's a competitor, and he's not going to give up his honey holes, and I mean, he showed me a lot. There are a lot of spots that I still frequent that I know from knowledge that I gained from him, and I mean, he's always willing to help out. But I mean, he doesn't say, "Hey, come with me to my trout spot now." Right.
He likes to go to your hole, though, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you can get that knowledge out of me, but I'm starting to catch on. I'm starting to hold things closer.
Well, you beat him this year.
That's right.
Yeah, that's absolutely.
Right. That's right.
He really is a great guy. He's a little quiet. I know the first time I met him, he was a little standoffish, but I think it's one of the things is you've got so many people coming up to you. Man, what did you use for bait? Where did you go? It's like, geez, if I tell 200 people, there's nowhere to fish. But I talk to Brendan a couple times a week. He's a great guy. If you ever get him one-on-one, he's got a lot of knowledge to him.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But let's talk a little bit about your tournament. You get there that morning. You hadn't had the opportunity to pre-fish. You get your bag of baits, and I know it's always a surprise when you get that bag of baits because it's like in Forrest Gump, it's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get there. So you're looking. What were your initial thoughts when you see that bag?
So I mean, I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, I saw 2 jigs, kind of standard jigs, what I would call, and I mean, I fished that type of bait a lot. I mean, a spinner bait, a top water, and a jig. The top water, wintertime, there are guys who throw it all day, every day. Chuck Bayhand, but that's not me. I like a jig, and I like a light jig head, so that I can kind of fish what part of the water column that I want to target. And I just think it's an all-around versatile bait. If I had to pick any one bait to go out and try to survive on, it'd be a jig. I ended up, putting on the pearl-colored paddle tail, and I put that on the lightest jig head.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, if you want to have a jig head for a minimalist challenge tournament, you want it to be named Death Grip, because obviously it's very important that you're able to get all you can out of that bait, and a jig head like that allows you that opportunity. And I fished with that same paddle tail all day and caught all of my fish on it. I never even threw the other baits. It's just because that's what I know, and that's how I fish. So, had I lost that bait early on, for whatever reason, broke it off an oyster or whatever, I probably would have moved on to the shrimp imitation. Because I just think white color is a great color choice. The water clarity wasn't spectacular, but it wasn't terrible. And, I just like the color white, and I think, it would have been the next choice. But I never even moved on to the other ones, and that bait got it done. So I caught, I don't know, probably 6 reds total, throw in some rat reds in there, and then all the trout on that. And like I said, by the end of it, the bait was pretty chewed up, but I was able to turn it sideways, kind of shove that Death Grip in there, and it had enough to bite onto to keep catching fish till the end. So.
Yeah, I think looking back, one of our regrets is the tournament directors were not the hooks themselves, but the weights we had. As I recall, and maybe Aaron, you could fill us in on that. I think we had a 1/8, a 1/4, and a 3/8 ounce jig head.
That's
and
right.
Had we been fishing deeper in deeper water, I think those baits. You just never know with the weather temperatures. The weather was warm that day.
Right.
The fish, I think, at least in my experience, were in a little bit shallower water, and so that 1/8 was definitely the jig head you wanted to use. But you encounter that problem is that if you start pulling it off and switching baits, you're going to be tearing up your bait. So it's a blessing and a curse at the same time.
Right. Conditions could have warranted needing the heavier jig heads. When you're making a decision, what type and weight jig heads you need. I'm glad you had the option, because it could have been different.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, we'd have needed the big one, huh?
Yeah. 15, 20 mile an hour winds, and it was 28 degrees, then it'd been a different story. But
that's exactly the mindset of when we do that. Lures are one thing, but you're right. Jig head weight and size, plays a big part in where you fish and how you fish. We try to get these, a month or so in advance, and we know it's winter. So we assume that we try to assume that at some point you're going to fish deep, because it's probably going to be cold or it's going to be windy. But, we never know. So we try to get a kind of a range of jig heads so that you at least have one in every category. But like Sean said, hindsight, could have probably went with 2 of the 1/8 and maybe just a 1/4.
I lost my 1/8 well into the morning, and so I was trying to fish in pretty shallow water with a heavy jig and just catching grass every cast. It was kind of tough.
I actually saw Tyler when he lost that jig head, and he looked like Kevin Van Dam pulling back to set that hook on that redfish, because that rod bent over, and the next thing I heard was, this is a G-rated show, so I'm not gonna.
Are you talking about Iconelli?
I don't know who.
He saw him out, yeah.
I'm just pulling out bass. I don't watch a lot of bass fishing, but I saw that rod bent over, and when Caldwell sets a hook, he sets a hook, and he set the hook. But the process, he managed to break his uni to uni knot. Not only did he lose his light jig head, but he lost his good bait. I think Clayton, it was the same bait
same one
I was using most of the day,
and lost my second red.
Lost his second red, which would possibly, he had a really good size first red, possibly would put him into the top 20 with that redfish. So, it was certainly a difficult day. I'll talk a little bit about my experience a little bit, but so Clayton, you when you went out, did you think, okay, I'm going to target redfish first, or I'm going to target trout later? I know normally, typically in the summer and stuff, we always want to target the trout first because the bite sends a tail off. But in the winter months, sometimes it seems you can catch trout later in the day.
Yeah. So, I mean, right off the bat in planning, I'm thinking about weight and, 3 redfish, say you can average a 6 pound, which is doable. And you need that. I mean, you're not going to win it with just a stringer of trout. So I felt like let's get the redfish early and probably a better chance of doing that. And then once you have a solid foundation, then we can build with some speckled trout, hopefully. Now, yeah, it'd be great to go catch some 7, 8 pound redfish like Brandon Barton did. But if you just target specks right off the bat, I think you could waste a lot of time and not have the opportunity later on. And I agree. I felt like, it's wintertime. The water's going to be warming up all day. I feel like the speckled trout, the feeding time that day, I believe, was 10 a.m. is what they were predicting would be the sweet spot. And so I figured, try to get some redfish that morning and, try to key in on the trout. At some point, I think I started catching trout at 11 o'clock, and it was about a 1.5 hour window where they were kind of turned on, and then it just kind of turned off. And I mean, I know they were there; they just stopped biting. So, you got to be in the right spot at the right time, obviously. And these that I caught this year, they were in shallow water. 1 to 2 foot max. And in years past, it's been deep jigging, 8 foot plus because the water table is much lower. And this year, everything had kind of warmed up much higher. So basically what I did is I started in the area where the deep water was, and I just kept moving, shallower and shallower. And until I just happened to kind of stumble upon where they were holding, and they happened to be feeding at that time. So.
Now, did you fish with that same bait that you were using to catch the redfish, the paddle tail swim type bait? Did you use that under, say, the top water as a cork, or did you just basically free line it with just the bait and the jig head?
No, I just free lined all day. I did whenever I knew that I had some solid redfish, ended up taking and biting off kind of the head part of the jig head. Kind of shorten it up a little bit because I felt like it's pretty good sized bait. And, these speckled trout that I was catching were in the 14 to 17 kind of range and in shallow water. And the longer I can get that bait kind of hang out in that strike zone. So I kind of shortened it up and just used it like that. But no, same bait all day.
So you caught your 3 redfish, correct?
Correct.
And how many trout did you have on top of that?
9.
9 trout. I think that may have been close to the most trout that was caught that day. I was actually surprised by the number of trout that was weighed in. I had pre-fished the area over the last month about 3 times and only managed to catch trout on one trip. And they were pretty picky, so I was actually surprised to see the number of trout brought in.
There's a few people that came in with only trout and no reds too, which was almost maybe they spent a little too much time on the trouters. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, in years past, we've had this tournament maybe 2 weeks earlier, 2 to 3 weeks earlier, and there's been some years where we've caught limits of trout. So I know they are hanging out in that area that time of year because in the past we had years where it was 25 trout was the limit. And Todd Lewis was like, never again. I'm not weighing that.
Well, I think that was
that was the year we had matrix shads, I think.
Yeah, my second minimalist challenge, we had an unusually warm January, and that was back when we had full limits of 5 redfish, 25 trout.
Yeah.
I think that was the year Steve won. I think there were limits of trout brought in. There were huge stringers. Those were the matrix shad. Tournament.
Interesting stat of that year: top 3 finishers had over 40 pounds of fish each.
Yeah,
I had 45 pounds of fish one year. I remember it was crazy, like just tails sticking out of my bag.
I remember that. That was just an incredible year. And I think the next year, one fish got you into the top 20. The weather. So you never know. Now, what was your total weight this year?
21.85.
21.85.
Yeah, 21.85, and Brandon had 21.01 with just 3.
21.10.
21.10, and he just had the 3 reds. He didn't have any trout.
Yep.
Correct.
So I know there were some posts on Facebook, I think, of him with the bottom of his kayak loaded with 4 redfish. I think it was at 7:30 or 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
He already had 4 stud redfish in the kayak.
And y'all were 4 and 5 pounds ahead of third place, which was pretty impressive.
So I just remember hearing about that when I was on the water and hearing, so Brandon Barton's got 4 or 5 redfish already in his kayak, and I'm thinking, I haven't had a bite yet. You want to talk about a punch to the gut.
Yeah.
You're thinking, oh God, I wish somebody wouldn't have told me that, because the whole time you're thinking, okay, it's a little tough for me. I bet it's tough for everybody else. And then you're seeing somebody else, is out there, got his limit of redfish already. It's not even 9 o'clock yet. Sometimes the best it's not good to talk to people, because it's a mental challenge.
Hey, those 2 guys drove from Florida 2 years in a row and placed in the money both years. I think both of them. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And
last year they tied.
Talking about that. Those guys came from Florida. We had a guy travel from Atlanta. I think that's the furthest I've heard. I think somebody come for one of our tournaments.
Yeah. I think we had a guy from Miami one year too. I think at Paddlepalooza.
Right. Well, that was Ryan McNeil, who used to live in Pensacola, I believe, and he now moved to Miami.
Yeah.
But this guy I know came from Atlanta. He was showing video or taking photos on Facebook at like 10 in the morning or whatever on the interstate, saying he's ready to go. That was pretty.
Well, I know we get them all over the Gulf. I mean, I know we've got some guys coming in from Mississippi. I think Aaron Clay, Mike Bridge are both over there. We've got some guys out in Alabama. Certainly some guys that come out from Florida. I mean, these are first class events that the club puts on. The payouts are really nice for a tournament this size. Clayton, you took home a check for $1,000, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and I think Brandon took home second place at 2110. Tyler, what was his payout? It was like 600.
I don't have it in front of me, but something like that.
600, and he got 500 for biggest
500
red.
For big red. So
that's true. Yeah,
he came out first. He came out ahead as far as the overall payout. Certainly didn't have the honors of finishing first in Minimalist Challenge, which is really a great honor with the fishermen that are in this club. So just to recap real quick, we had first place Clayton Shilling at 21.85 pounds, Brandon Barton at second at 2110. Third place, it was a considerable drop there. Devin Belts at 16.96. Then going down, fourth place, John Thompson. Fifth place, Brendan Bayard. Sixth place, Doug Menifee. And seventh place, Matthew Van, who's Brandon's buddy, also came in from Florida. Big fish, Brandon Barton at 7.49 pound redfish, which is a pretty big redfish for Leeville in that slot category. Then Nick Guidry, who won the Leopard Red, incredible. I got to see this redfish, 29 spots, 29 spot red, 17 on one side. So that was certainly interesting. So, well, guys, I know that's a pretty good recap of Minimalist Challenge. We do have some other tournaments coming up here shortly. We've got Trout Challenge coming up on March 9th in St. Bernard Parish. We're working on the format for that, but it looks like it's going to be the heaviest weight of 10 trout. This is the second qualifying event for the championship series. It's also the second event awarding Angler of the Year points. The weigh-in location, we're working on that. It's probably going to be Last Stop, which is a great location because it's basically the juncture if you're fishing Hopedale, Shell Beach, Delacroix, Reggio. Everything ends right there. On everybody's way out. So that'll be the next tournament. That's on March 9th.
And they have great food. So you can get your bellies full while you're waiting on the fish to get weighed.
Yeah. We actually switched it up a little bit this year. Trout Challenge is usually in the fall and Redfish Rumble in the early spring. We decided to switch it up a little bit because the Trout Challenge the last 2 years have been tough with the weather. So we're hoping to get a little bit more mild weather this year, and the redfish always seem to be an easier target in the fall. After that,
I just want to step in. I think we'll be getting registration up for Trout Challenge probably within the next week or so. So that one's about a month out, and we typically try to open it up a month out. So I'll be looking for that in the next week.
Great. Then the next tournament of that's going to be kind of a unique format for us this year. It's Double Trouble. That's going to be April 6th. The weigh-in is going to be at Pack Kayak Rentals with Eddie and Lisa Mullen. That's going to be a team tournament, and we're going to be announcing the format for that shortly. But it's going to include all of Terrebonne and Lafourche Parish. So if you're familiar with Pack and Terrebonne Parish, you like to fish those areas, it'd be a good spot to fish. If you want to do a little pre-fishing for Paddlepalooza, which will be May 4th, this will be a great opportunity to go out there and fish the Golden Meadow area. Certainly, you could fish Leeville, Basons, in all those areas. This is the third qualifying event for the championship series. You can also earn points for Angler of the Years. This will be a team format again. We're working on that, finalizing it, and we will be announcing shortly. I don't want to make any premature announcements before it's all agreed upon. But it's going to be a lot of fun. Should be a 1 redfish, 5 trout per team member type deal, with each team being able to weigh in 2 redfish, 10 trout, and probably a couple flounder mixed in there. It'll be the heaviest weight. Also, for people with questions about that, it will be, even though it's a team tournament and the awards will go for the team, there will likely be a separate Calcutta for the angler with the highest weight, with the heaviest weight, and also each individual weight will work towards qualifying for the championship series. So even if you go out and have a good day, but your partner skunks, there's still a lot on the line for you individually as an angler. But certainly the whole point of the tournament is to fish with somebody else, enjoy fishing with someone else, and rooting on your team tournament, your team member, and helping them catch fish rather than, I guess, being somewhat disappointed when you see someone else in the tournament catching a redfish right in front of you.
Sean, is this going to be the first official team tournament for Bayou Coast? Do we know?
As far as I know, I think there was an Outcast team tournament a few years ago.
No, we had a Double Trouble in the past.
Okay. Was that an official tournament or was that an Outcast tournament?
I mean, I believe it was an official tournament. We weighed in at Massey's down in New Orleans.
Okay.
Team Poppin' Cork won it.
Team. And who was that? Who was at that team?
It was me and Stephen Carr.
And now that brings up a good point, because this year there will be no super teams.
That's right.
We will be having specific rules that prevent the likes of Clayton, Shilling, and Steve Lessard from teaming up again. Right. Essentially, what we're looking at is anybody who qualified for the championship last year will not be allowed to fish together. Clayton, did you qualify for the championship last year?
I did not.
And if so, are you looking for someone to fish with for Double Trouble this year?
I'm gonna get Brandon Barton to help me out with an auction.
Yeah. Okay. So
no, I've got a couple people who reached out to me.
Yeah, I think this is a good opportunity for some more of our experienced anglers to reach out there and help some of the little bit more inexperienced anglers get out there on the water, show them around a little bit, and help them feel good about, kind of going through the tournament scene and just introducing to people. So I know certainly I'm going to try to do that. I think some of other officers and anglers will do it. We'll announce a certain format for that shortly. Rounding out our spring lineup will be Paddlepalooza, and that's going to be May 4th on Highway 1. That is Bayou Coast's biggest tournament of the year. It's going to be down there at Bridgeside and Grand Isle. We generally get over 200 anglers, sometimes as many as 250. Lots of great prizes. The raffle's incredible. First place is generally a new kayak. Second place is a kayak. There are multiple categories, including big fish for redfish, trout, flounder, leopard red. Then you've got the big category, which is going to be the slam tournament, which consists of the redfish, trout, and flounder. It is a great time. If you haven't fished it, you definitely need to come down and fish that tournament with us this year. Certainly leading up to that tournament all through April, we will have focus our podcast on those tournaments. We'll talk about the areas, the format, maybe scouting for it, and what you need to do to prepare for Paddlepalooza and what to expect. Let's see. That's again, that is not a standalone. That's a standalone tournament, not part of the championship series or Angler of the Year. Plan on, if you're going to fish it, trying to come out there for the whole weekend. A lot of guys take off that Thursday and Friday, some of them that Friday, and stay out there, 3 or 4 nights. It's something everybody puts on the calendar and plans on taking a little vacation time, because it is a great event. We get anglers from all over the United States to come and fish that event. I know, Clayton, you've fished it a number of times. You were probably there at the early Paddlepaloozas.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. I always encourage guys who are thinking about getting into kayak fishing, to make Paddlepalooza or Fall on Tide, because it really is, and it's an event in itself. And even if you are brand new to the kayak scene, one thing about our club is there are many guys who are willing to invest in you and help you out and kind of show you some things. I know, like, a lot of us, we get a great enjoyment out of seeing a guy who is first time going out. He lands a redfish or a pepper trout, or he comes back in, and he found a flounder or whatever it is, and it's a great club. There's a lot of great anglers, but not only that, there are great guys and girls who fish in our club. Are very welcoming, and it's just a good time. So yeah, if you're thinking about getting into it, one of those big events is a great way to kind of get plugged in and meet some people and find some fishing friends to get out there on the water with. So.
Yeah, the entry fee is a little more expensive for those, but don't shy away from it, because you're going to get a free meal on Friday night. You're going to get a free meal on Saturday. You're going to get a nice event shirt. Sometimes it's the performance style fishing shirt. Like Aaron has one on right there.
The nice cotton.
Or you get the T-shirts. And then you also, every angler is going to get a captain's bag. It's going to have some goodies in it from our sponsors. So just by signing up, you're pretty much getting your money back, especially when you see how much fun you're going to have down there. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And we always encourage people to try to get a room for the night, especially on the way in for Saturday. People are always getting together, renting camps, renting rooms, splitting rooms. So, you can come off, for a good time, probably for $100 for the whole weekend between your way in and your room, because all your meals will be provided while you're down there, essentially. And you're just looking at a little gas money. So start reaching out and planning for it early on. It's a little bit later this year. Last year, I think it was in March. We had a great tournament in March. This year, we put it on May 4th, a little bit later. So, the areas will change a little bit, but it's going to be a really good time. So I'm starting to get the wave off now that looks like we're running a little over. I wanted to thank Clayton Shilling for coming on the show tonight. I also wanted to thank Aaron LaRose for coming on and helping us out there. Tyler Caldwell, he's the intern, as referred to him. He's the guy that put it all together technically, put together our intro video, all of our networking and everything. Great job, Tyler. The amount of stuff this guy does behind the scenes is incredible. We talk every day, literally every day, probably an hour text messaging. So it's a great thing. Again, this show will be airing every week on Tuesdays at 8:30 Central. And we hope you come back and join us shortly. We'll be putting this on YouTube for viewing, and will also be converted to a podcast for people who did not get a chance to see it or just want to recap and listen to it while they're driving on the road. So thanks again for everybody for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you next week.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Sean. And I want to give one quick shout out just to Scott Myers for I used a lot of his photography there in the intro video and stuff, and he lets us do that for free and does that for a living. So I just wanted to make sure he was recognized for letting us use that stuff.
Yeah, thank you very much, Scott. You take some great pictures. If you go on Facebook, look at some of the pictures from the tournament. He did some great shots of the weigh-in, some of the anglers on the water, and he does some shots out there on the water and some other things. So check him out. I think it's Bayou Chronicles is his Facebook page. So he does some great things out there. All right, Tyler, that's a wrap.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
See y'all next week.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.